I think it was like when in middle school when I really started believing like I don't really believe in what they've taught me.
If I'm trying to ask questions about this religion but no one's trying to answer it, how good could it possibly be? Or like what motives would they have to hide it from me?
Doubt. It is as ever-present as rain during the monsoon, overwhelming your long-held beliefs and making it difficult to move on. It is difficult to believe when the facts aren't proven and the state of the world speaks a different story than the mercy of God may show.
Before high school, I always thought of myself as agnostic because even though I was born and raised in a Buddhist household, my family wasn't really religiously Buddhist.
I mean, ever since I was younger, I never really believed because I don't know, I just never really believed. Like, it never really sunk in me, like, oh yeah, like all this actually happened. Because it's sort of like as a kid, it wasn't that I believed in like a higher being, it was sort of like I just went with the flow. So I never really questioned it, but at the same time I always did.
The only person who really practiced the religion was my grandmother. And every time I'd ask her any questions about Buddhism, she'd always cut me off or tell me not to ask any more questions. And that made me think, like, if I'm trying to ask questions about this religion but no one's trying to answer it, how good could it possibly be? Or like what motives would they have to hide it from me? So I was really skeptical of organized religion and wasn't really religious until my family started going to the temple during my freshman year.
Growing up as the firstborn to interreligious parents meant that the circumstances of my childhood beliefs and worldview were greatly shaped by the environment I lived in. I recall weekend trips to temples and Hindu festivals, my father's prayer bells on Saturday mornings, and though I was not yet taught the teachings of Hinduism, the traditions my family kept remained within me. When I moved to America, my mother found her home within New York City's Indian Christian community, and before I knew it, my sister and I attended church almost every Sunday. My Indian cultural background became intertwined with my newfound Christian beliefs, and I quickly became attached to the teachings of Jesus and his message of love. However, being brought up into religion is vastly different from coming into it as a stranger. Our beliefs change as we change, and ultimately, we choose to settle where we find home and acceptance.
So both my parents were raised in pretty traditional Chinese households, and when they came to America, they raised my brother and I on the same values. A lot of the values and beliefs were Confucian beliefs, but since Confucianism is so ingrained in Chinese culture, we didn't label it as like Confucianism. So I was born and raised in a Buddhist household, but I didn't really practice it as much.
So I grew up in like a mostly Catholic household. Both of my parents were Catholic, so I inevitably grew up Catholic. It wasn't that when I was younger I like lived and breathed the Bible, obviously not. But like whatever my parents said, I kind of believed because, you know, they were an authority. I never like fully believed that Jesus Christ was a real person, but I did believe in like the ideologies of just, you know, do good, respect thy neighbor, and, you know, live life loving others. That's kind of the only thing that I took away from like growing up in the mostly Catholic household.
John 15:12. My command is this: love one another as I have loved you. I have found comfort and purpose in this verse. At first, it had seemed so easy. Just be kind and love. What I did not realize was that love was so much more. Love was being selfless, love was forgiveness, and ultimately love was acceptance of strangers, simply because they too were human.
First 2 years of going to the temple, I didn't really like it because I was still stuck in that mindset where I thought organized religion was just for fanatics, and I still couldn't vibe with this. And I still couldn't like connect with the religion.
But I always did believe in that there was some form of higher power, like there's something beyond this life, whether it be like a heaven or a hell. Like I just believed that there was something beyond this world.
So in Buddhism, we believe that every action creates a consequence, and if you do something good, that creates good karma, but if you do something bad, that creates bad karma.
My issue is when hyper-religious people start using the Bible as like a means to develop their hate and a means to justify their racism, their homophobia, etc., their xenophobia towards others. That's when I really do have a problem.
So my personal goal in life is to create as low karma as possible, and also to get rid of all the karma that I've created in like my past life or I've created before.
According to me, I like to believe that everyone in the world is born good, or at least like no one knows about evil until they're taught, such as how like no one's born like racist, homophobic, etc. They're taught that way. So I like to believe that throughout everyone's lives, they're innocent, or at least they always have like a sense of good in them, and that basically that only changes through life events and shit like that.
At an especially young age, when we are just figuring out who we are, the fundamental truth of our faiths are brought into question. In the ever-changing world that we inhabit, some seek to find solace in the hope of something bigger than themselves, while others are content with finding it from within. Reflect upon a time when you found comfort in a story or a person. For many, we encounter a series of different stories before we find one we truly believe in.